I was pregnant. I thought my husband loved me, but he was hiding a secret with someone else. I believed my life was perfect. I was pregnant, happy, and thought I had the love of my husband. But one day, a secret came to light. A secret that shattered my world. Today, I want to share the story of how I faced betrayal, heartbreak, and still found the strength to fight for myself and my unborn child. Hello, dear listeners. Thank you for joining me today. Before I begin my story, I would be very happy if you subscribed to the channel and left a comment writing which state or country you are listening from. It always warms my heart to see how far our stories travel. My name is Emily. I live in a cozy apartment in Chicago, a city that has always felt like home. Life for me was simple, predictable, yet comforting. My husband, Mark, and I had been together for 6 years, married for 4. People often said we were perfect for each other, and I truly believed it. I trusted him with every part of my life, with every heartbeat of my unborn child growing inside me. The mornings were my favorite. The sunlight would filter softly through our bedroom blinds, painting our walls in shades of gold. Mark would still be asleep, his face calm and serene, completely unaware that I was awake, watching him with a mixture of love and contentment. I would smile softly, pressing my hand against my growing belly, whispering, "I can't wait to meet you, little one." Life smelled like coffee and fresh flowers in our apartment. The nursery was decorated in soft pastels, stuffed animals neatly lined on shelves, and a tiny crib waiting for our baby. Everything seemed perfect. The world outside could be chaotic, but inside these walls I felt safe. Yet, as I would soon learn, appearances can be deceiving. The calm of our life was only a fragile illusion, and beneath it lay shadows I was yet to discover. It began with little things. Mark would leave his phone on silent when I entered the room. He would glance at it too quickly, too nervously, hiding whatever was on the screen. I told myself it was nothing. Pregnancy makes you anxious, emotional. But the unease in my stomach refused to fade. One evening, I had an appointment at the doctor's office. On the way back, I felt a strange mix of anticipation and dread. I wanted to surprise Mark with the news that the baby's heartbeat was stronger than ever. But when I entered the apartment, I noticed something unusual. A soft, intimate laugh floated from the living room. My chest tightened. I moved silently toward the sound, my pulse racing, my breath shallow. There it was, Mark's phone, left carelessly on the coffee table. My eyes fell on the screen and my heart stopped. The words glowed brightly. "I miss you. Can't wait to see you tonight." I sank to my knees, clutching my belly. The baby kicked, and I felt a mix of love and despair wash over me. The world seemed to tilt, spinning around the betrayal I had just uncovered. Mark walked in, whistling softly, unaware of the storm that had just consumed me. "Emily? What's wrong?" His voice sounded so familiar, yet it was like a stranger's. I could barely speak. "Who is she, Mark?" I whispered, trembling. He froze. Guilt flashed across his face, and he tried to explain, but no words could undo the betrayal. The life I had believed in had shattered in an instant. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. Anger, disbelief, sorrow, fear, all collided inside me. My hand rested on my belly, feeling the baby's tiny movements, and I realized that no matter how shattered I felt, I wasn't completely alone. Why did this happen? Was it my fault? Did I fail to notice the signs? My mind spun with questions, but deep inside, I knew the truth. His choices were his own. My love had been real, my trust absolute, and yet it had been broken. The night dragged on. Every sound, every shadow seemed to echo with his betrayal. I whispered to my unborn child, promising that I would protect them, that I would survive. I realized that survival was the first step toward reclaiming my life. The next morning, I confronted him. My voice was calm, measured, the kind of calm that precedes a storm. "I saw the messages, Mark," I said. "I know everything." He looked down, avoiding my gaze. "Emily." I interrupted. "Don't make excuses. Don't lie. I want the truth." "Who is she?" His silence was loud. His guilt was palpable. I realized then that confrontation is not always about yelling or tears. Sometimes it's about asserting your strength and control. I walked to the nursery, touching the crib lightly, feeling the baby move. I whispered promises of love and protection, silently vowing that I would not let this betrayal define me. For days, I withdrew. Friends and family called, but I could only offer polite smiles. The betrayal was mine to process, mine alone. I spent hours in the nursery, talking to my unborn child, imagining the future I wanted to create for them. You will grow up knowing love, strength, and courage, I whispered softly. And no one, not even your father, can take that away from us. Writing became my therapy. I penned letters to Mark, not to send, but to release the anger and pain I carried inside. I spoke to myself in the mirror, reminding myself that I was stronger than any betrayal, that I had the power to rebuild my life. Even in my pregnancy, I began to feel a shift within me. My resilience grew with each passing day. I held my head high, walked with confidence, and felt a sense of empowerment I hadn't known before. Mark may have betrayed me, but I had not betrayed myself. My love for my child, my self-respect, and my intelligence became my shield. I realized that betrayal doesn't have to destroy you. It can awaken the strength you never knew existed. As days passed, I began to plan not revenge, but the reclamation of my life. I would face Mark when the time was right, but on my terms. Calm, composed, and unshakable. Standing by the nursery window, watching the city lights flicker, I felt a fire inside me. The storm of betrayal had arrived, but so had my armor. And when the moment came, Mark would realize that the woman he betrayed was no longer the same. Part 1 closes with me holding my belly, whispering to the baby, "This is only the beginning. We will survive. We will rise. And nothing will break us." Morning after confrontation. The sunlight streamed softly through the blinds, casting long lines across the bedroom floor. I woke up slowly, my hand resting over my growing belly. The events of the previous day were still vivid in my mind. Mark had avoided my eyes, muttered excuses that sounded hollow even to him. I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and determination. The betrayal had left its mark, but it hadn't broken me. Not yet. I knew I had to stay strong for myself, for my unborn child. I walked to the nursery and sat on the rocking chair, feeling the baby move against my hand. I whispered softly, "You are my strength, little one. We will face this together." Even in my pain, I felt a spark of empowerment. I could no longer be the woman who waited silently for someone else's love. Something inside me had shifted, a silent vow that I would reclaim my life. Days passed, and I found myself thinking constantly about the life I wanted to create. Mark's betrayal was not the end of my story. I needed a plan. I started organizing my days carefully. Morning walks, prenatal yoga, writing in my journal, researching my rights, and even looking into financial independence. Every small step reminded me that I could survive and thrive without him. Each time Mark tried to speak or approach me, I responded with calm firmness. No tears, no pleading, just quiet authority. That calm power unnerved him. I noticed it in the way he avoided my gaze, in the nervous hesitation in his voice. One evening, I stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker. I imagined my life 6 months from now, my baby, my independence, my peace. I could feel the strength growing inside me, just as the life inside my womb grew with every heartbeat. Mark began to show signs of guilt. He would watch me from across the room, hesitant to approach, unsure how to bridge the distance between us. I didn't mean for it to happen, he confessed one evening. I looked at him calmly, steadying my voice. "Mark, it happened. It's done. There are no excuses. You chose to betray me." The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. He realized that the woman he thought he controlled was no longer fragile or naive. My resolve had become a shield. I spent that night reflecting. My life had been shattered, yes, but the pieces were not lost. I could rebuild, stronger and wiser than before. I began speaking more openly to myself, asserting my independence. I visualized the life I wanted, not just for survival, but for true fulfillment. Mark may have betrayed me, but I will not betray myself, I whispered one morning. I will be strong for my child. I will be strong for me. Pregnancy had made me vulnerable physically, but emotionally, I felt stronger than ever. I was learning to channel pain into power, despair into determination. I started small, preparing my own meals, organizing finances, planning for a career after the baby. Every small victory reinforced my sense of self-worth. One afternoon, Mark tried to discuss our future. I listened patiently, nodding silently. He spoke of regret, of trying to make amends, but his words felt hollow. I can't undo the past, Mark. But I can control my future, I said calmly. The look in his eyes was a mix of fear, guilt, and respect. He realized that the woman he betrayed was no longer dependent on him for her strength. It was a subtle victory, but a victory nonetheless. I didn't need him to acknowledge it. I felt it in my own heart. I had reclaimed power that no betrayal could take away. As the months passed, I focused more on preparing for the baby. Decorating the nursery, attending prenatal classes, connecting with supportive friends and family, these actions grounded me. The baby's kicks became a constant reminder that life moves forward, even after heartbreak. I found joy in the little moments, the first tiny hiccups, the way sunlight fell across the crib, the smell of baby powder in the air. I also began planning my independence. Financially, emotionally, physically, I wanted to be ready to face the world on my own terms, fully equipped to protect my child and myself. The day finally came when I realized that my strength was undeniable. Mark approached me again, a mix of fear and desperation in his eyes. I was wrong, he admitted. I looked at him, calm and composed. Yes, you were. And you need to live with that. I have already moved forward. I felt no anger, no tears, only a deep, quiet sense of empowerment. The betrayal had tested me, broken me, and yet it had also awakened a part of me I never knew existed. As the sun set, I stood by the nursery window, my hand on my belly. I whispered softly, "We are safe. We are strong. Nothing can break us." Mark was no longer a central figure in my story. He was a chapter one had closed, a lesson I had learned. My future and my child's future were now in my hands. I had survived betrayal. I had reclaimed my power. And as I felt the baby kick once more, I knew that this was only the beginning of a life filled with strength, love, and resilience. Weeks had passed since the confrontation with Mark. Life had settled into a new rhythm, but the emotional scars were still there. Every morning I would wake, hand on my belly, feeling the tiny flutters of the baby. Those movements had become a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't alone, that I carried a future inside me that no one could steal. I began keeping a journal more diligently. Not just about my pregnancy, but about my feelings, my reflections, my plans for independence. Mark would occasionally try to approach me, but I had learned the art of polite distance. My silence was more powerful than any argument. It was my strength speaking. I realized something profound. Betrayal can break trust, but it cannot break your spirit unless you allow it to. And I refused to be broken. One evening, I found myself sitting by the nursery window, city lights flickering outside. I was reflecting on all the pain, the sleepless nights, the tears I had shed silently. Suddenly, I laughed, a small, incredulous laugh. Not of humor, but of release. I had carried this grief for weeks, letting it consume me, but I realized I am more than his mistakes. I am more than his lies. I am a mother, a survivor, a woman in control of her own destiny. I made a silent vow to my child. I will raise you with courage, dignity, and love. And nothing, not betrayal, not lies, will ever make you doubt your worth. That night, I slept for the first time in weeks without the crushing weight of despair pressing on my chest. As the days turned into weeks, I prepared myself for independence. I researched financial options, planned for postpartum employment, and even began considering moving into a new apartment once the baby arrived. Each step I took was deliberate, methodical, a statement to myself and to Mark that my life would no longer be dictated by his choices. Mark noticed the change. He tried to apologize, to justify, to plead. But I remained calm, firm, and unshaken. My inner voice had grown stronger than his attempts to control me. You cannot undo what happened, I told him gently yet decisively. And I will not let it define me. I am building my life, and you are no longer at its center. I could see the shock in his eyes, a mix of guilt and fear. The woman he thought he knew was gone. In her place stood someone unbreakable. My focus shifted entirely to preparing for my child. I spent hours in the nursery, arranging toys, washing tiny clothes, assembling the crib with love and care. Every small action grounded me, reminded me that life goes on and that happiness is still possible. I even started attending prenatal classes alone, which initially felt lonely but soon became empowering. I met other mothers, shared experiences, and realized that many had faced betrayal, hardships, and challenges, yet they thrived. I felt connected, not just to the world outside, but to the strength inside me. Pregnancy had made me vulnerable, yes, but it had also awakened a resilience I hadn't known I possessed. One afternoon, Mark approached me with an air of desperation. He seemed to have accepted his role as the one who caused the pain, yet he still sought forgiveness. I know I hurt you, he said quietly, avoiding my gaze. I want to make things right. I looked at him calmly, steady and unwavering. You cannot undo the past, Mark. What happened cannot be erased. But I have moved forward. I will raise this child with love, dignity, and strength, and that is my only concern. He nodded, silent. The weight of his guilt was evident, yet he understood. I had reclaimed my power. The final weeks of pregnancy were intense, both physically and emotionally. But each day I woke with determination. I took long walks in the park, feeling the baby kick with every step. I connected with friends and family more than ever, building a support system that was entirely mine. The betrayal no longer defined me. It was a shadow in the past, while my future grew brighter every day. I realized that true empowerment does not come from revenge or making someone pay. It comes from reclaiming your life, embracing your worth, and protecting the ones you love. I stood by the nursery window one evening, the city lights twinkling below. I pressed my hand to my belly and whispered, "We are safe. We are loved. And nothing will ever break us." One afternoon, Mark approached me with an air of desperation. He seemed to have accepted his role as the one who caused the pain, yet he still sought forgiveness. I know I hurt you, he said quietly, avoiding my gaze. I want to make things right. I looked at him calmly, steady and unwavering. You cannot undo the past, Mark. What happened cannot be erased. But I have moved forward. I will raise this child with love, dignity, and strength, and that is my only concern. He nodded, silent. The weight of his guilt was evident, yet he understood. I had reclaimed my power. The final weeks of pregnancy were intense, both physically and emotionally. But each day I woke with determination. I took long walks in the park, feeling the baby kick with every step. I connected with friends and family more than ever, building a support system that was entirely mine. The betrayal no longer defined me. It was a shadow in the past, while my future grew brighter every day. I realized that true empowerment does not come from revenge or making someone pay. It comes from reclaiming your life, embracing your worth, and protecting the ones you love. I stood by the nursery window one evening, the city lights twinkling below. I pressed my hand to my belly and whispered, "We are safe. We are loved. And nothing will ever break us."